So, what happened to Mars lights? That's a good question. Someone in the comments actually asked it, and I thought it was worth looking into. For those who don't know, a Mars light isn't a light on the planet Mars or something used by M&M. Mars lights were signal safety lights used in the United States, built specifically by the Mars Signal Light Company, hence the name. They were originally developed by a Chicago firefighter named Jerry Kennelly as an extra safety measure for both fire departments and railroads. What makes a Mars light distinctive, apart from being made by the Mars Company, is oscillation. There were many different types, and cataloging each one is nearly impossible, partly because the company did very little advertising. They typically built lights to order for specific buyers based on individual needs. The lights came in various colors, usually white or red, and could move vertically, horizontally, or sometimes in a combined rotational pattern. The key effect was that the light didn't flash like a strobe. Instead, it shimmered, smoothly dimming and brightening in intervals. This oscillation made it far more eye-catching. Lights as safety devices aren't unusual. Even modern cars have daytime running lights simply because a distant light is much easier to see. Mars lights were used both day and night, and they likely saved many lives over the years. Railroads were especially fond of them for passenger and commuter service, where trains frequently stopped and started in busy stations full of people. Many railroads let the lights oscillate when the train was in motion, particularly when starting, making it very clear that the train was moving. Red and white were the most common colors, but many patterns and other colors existed, making the variety hard to pin down. Testing began on the Chicago and Northwestern Railroad in 1936, and they liked the lights so much that they incorporated them onto their own steam locomotives. Kennelly formally received a patent for his invention on February 16, 1937, designated the FL model. The company he founded hardly advertised and never really cataloged many standard models. Since mounting techniques varied dramatically depending on the locomotive, and most lights were custom-tailored, tracking and organizing the products today is extremely difficult. They barely had any competition. The only notable rival was the Pyle National Company, which sold Euro lights that moved in an elliptical pattern similar, but never as popular. In fact, rail fans often call any oscillating light a Mars light because the brand became the default. The company grew, opening a location in Naples, Florida, in the early 1970s. They were eventually purchased by the Trip Light Company, which renamed the business Trip Light Mars, or simply Trip Light Incorporated. That company still exists today, though operations moved back to Chicago, and they now produce warning lights and sirens. However, modern products are no longer designed for railroads. Why not? In the 1990s, safety regulations changed. Mars lights alone were deemed insufficient, and it became a legal mandate that all regular service locomotives have ditch lights. Ditch lights, sometimes called auxiliary lights or crossing lights, are extra lights mounted at the front and sometimes rear of a locomotive or cab car, positioned lower and closer to the track than normal headlights. Like Mars lights, they make trains easier to spot, and many flash when the horn sounds at crossings to improve visibility. Ditch lights actually date back to the 1960s on the Canadian National Railway. Transport Canada made them a requirement in the 1970s, and the United States followed in the 1990s. By the deadline of December 31, 1997, all equipment operating over public grade crossings at speeds above 20 miles per hour had to have ditch lights, with limited exceptions for historic equipment or slow trains in rural areas. The regulations also specified their spacing and height above the rails. The low position of the lights makes a moving train more obvious to people in cars or on foot. Because ditch lights became mandatory, Mars lights were no longer needed. Railroads could have kept both, but once ditch lights were a legal requirement, there was little reason to install Mars lights on new locomotives. Older locomotives still in service sometimes retain their Mars lights because they were well built and there was no reason to remove them, but new purchases simply don't include them. A few passenger carriers are exceptions. Chicago's Metra, for instance, uses both Mars lights and ditch lights on its equipment. In a busy metropolitan area with faster service, that extra visibility makes sense. Heritage equipment, of course, features them all over the place. Even though they are mostly no longer used on railroads, Mars lights remain a curious and interesting part of the industry's history. Special thanks to my underwater train finders, some dude 267, Orange Glass, Benjamin Owens, Anzac A1, Arthur Roy, Jack Carson, our videos, Lord Off 444, Royal H26, IR 1405, Charles Sikowski, Matt Weaver, Tom, Red Lion, NX Productions, 8104 Will, Jack 8401, Rescues Greyhounds, The Backer, Caleb Cross, Andrew Bowen, Josh Johnson, Caleb Brainwaters, PR Drennon, Master of None, Travis Alinsky, Jared Brussel, Joshua Long, Tommy Reaney, Ben Mola, Painter Kitsun 131, D232, Mark Holding, G Wiz, Mr. Tell, Hayden DeGrow, Medal for Life Guy, Hannah Bird, No Eric Hutton, Kirk Verham, Ohio Trucker 1, Mitchell Coe, Mr. Sleepy, Dr. Racer 78, Nylon A Museum, RAR Preserver 2000, Willard Conlon, Windy City Rails, Liam Wright, Dien Trell, Typhoon, and of course my dad. Till next time, this is Darkness, and I bet you all a fun farewell.